Hello my dear students, welcome to Arunavasir bio class. So today's special class for ICSE class 9. Last we discussed a very interesting chapter, that is the pollination and fertilization. And we already discussed the flower structure and discussed about the pollination process. Now today we discuss about the fertilization process. But at first, all of the students, Sayon, Sindila, Shatani, Chronicle, Shorashish, গৌরব রাজদীপ অনুভব সোহম সুদীপ্ত দিশারি সৌম্যজিৎ ওয়ান্দ্রিলা অঙ্কন সমৃদ্ধি দেবারুণ সৌম্যদিত্য শতানু সৃজিতা দেবলীনা নিরুপমা ঈশান কৃষ্ণাশিস আরুষি সৌরেশ রশ্মি প্রমিত দেবার্ঘ সপ্তর্ষি সৌম্যজিৎ and Kaushali. All of the students have a very warm welcome to our special class pollination and fertilization for ICSE class 9. But this class is not for the 9. This flower and the sexual reproduction of flowering plants, this chapter is also have different classes syllabus also. So this chapter is very important for all of the students. Please you carefully learn every topic on this chapter, but at first we recall what you are learning in this chapter in the last few sessions. So at first we discussed that is a flower. You know, the flower is the reproductive structure. Flower, you know, that is ultimately reproductive organ of the angiosperm. This is the most important structure by which the sexual reproduction of flowering plants are happening. If we are discussing the structure of the flower, so flower have the different parts. That is we have discussed in our first class. So it is the sepals, right? And it is the petals, and this one is called the stamen. That is the male part, right? Androecium. They have the two parts, anther and filaments. On the other hand, this female part, this is called the pistil or carpel. They have the stigma, style and ovary. And inside the ovary, the ovule are present, and inside the ovule, the embryo sac are present, which one we discussed in our today's session. So this is the different parts of the flower. But male reproductive structure, the androecium, take the important role in the sexual reproduction of the flowering plants. You know, anther is the bilobed structure, which is the origin of the production of pollen grains. Pollen grains, and it is the female part. It is the carpel. Stigma, style and ovary. You know, sometimes the one gynoecium is ultimately bundle in nature, and single one substance is that, and ovary, and inside that ovule are present. And inside the ovule, the embryo sac are present, and the embryo sac, the egg cell are present, which is participates in the fertilization process. Now, today we discuss this important structure. After that, we discuss the pollination process. Pollination means transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. And pollination are the two types. Already we discussed it. That is the self-pollination and the cross-pollination. When the transfer of pollen grains are happening from a single plant, that time it is called the self-pollination. Same plant, same flower, it is happening. That time it is called the self-pollination. But plant is the same, but flower is the different. That time also it is a self-pollination, but plant were the different. That time the pollen grains is transferred from one plant to another. That time it is a cross-pollination. Cross-pollination are happening by the different agent, like wind, like insect, like birds. Different agents are responsible for the cross-pollination, because that time it is very important to transfer the pollen grains in very distant place. But why flowers are the attractive in nature? This is here, the pollination, because due to the attraction, insects are attracted towards the flower. When they take the nectar, that time the pollination are happening simultaneously. So pre-fertilization events, fertilization and the post-fertilization. So in here is the anther structure. This is the most important structural part. Inside that you can observe it is the pollen grains. Pollen grains, if you had just notice their structure, this is covered by a two membrane. outer membrane and inner membrane. Outer membrane of the pollen grains are called exine and inner membrane of the pollen grains are called intine. Exine, which is contain a special chemicals. That one is the sporopollen. On the other hand, intine, the innermost layer which contains cellulose, hemicellulose, this type of chemical substance. But now we go inside the pollen grains. In the cytoplasm of the pollen grains, you observe that two nucleus is there. One is the vegetative nucleus, another one is the generative nucleus. Generative nucleus participate in the fertilization. Tube nucleus help to formation of pollen tube. That is the difference. Clear? Generative nucleus and vegetative nucleus. Generative nucleus ultimately form the two haploid male gametes. Now the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma by the process of pollination. After the fall of the stigma, the pollen tube is now generated. Why? To achieve the fertilization process. Now the tube nucleus at first they go and form the tube, pollen tube. And behind that the nucleus, generative nucleus is there. Now we ultimately, very important question is that how the pollen grains are know that this stigma is suitable for the generation of pollen tube. It is a chemotropic movement which is ultimately happening in that particular process, which ultimately denoted that when the pollen tube is generated and when it is not. It is a chemical mediated process are happening there. When they recognize the same type of pollen grains are fall in the stigma, only that time the pollen tube are generated. Now the pollen tube are entered into the ovule, and inside the ovule you can observe it is the embryo sac. In the embryo sac, it is a 7-cell, 8-nucleated structure. This structural point from where the pollen tube are entered, it is called the micropylar end. Opposite to micropylar end, it is called the chalicer end. In the micropylar end, you can observe the 3 cells. These pink colored cells are called the egg cells, and surrounding these 2 cells are called the synergids. And in here it is the polar nucleus is there, that is most important. And in the chalicer end, these 3 cells or nucleus, it is called the antipodals. Antipodal cells. So in the pre-fertilization process, the generative nucleus now enter. Now we discuss the most important events, that is the fertilization. It is also we call the double fertilization. But why? Now we discuss this thing. Now we are explain the structure of the ovule. Ovule, where it is present inside the ovary, and these ovules are covered by a membrane. This is called integuments. What is integuments? How many integuments is there? 2 integuments is there that is covered the ovule. And this is the micropylar end. The pollen tube enter via the micropylar end. Because the side, the egg cell are present, pollen tube penetrate the wall of the embryo sac and burst to open. Now the tube nucleus are degenerated. These 2 are the generative nucleus. Now they enter into the embryo sac. After that, fertilization are happening. The 2 nucleus is there. One is the egg nucleus, another is a polar nucleus. These 2 nucleus, mainly the 3, are participate in the fertilization process. This is also we call the secondary nucleus. This is the polar nucleus. This is the 2n in nature. That means n and plus n, they are combined together and form the 2n. Then one nucleus they participate into the polar nucleus, and formation of the endosperm nucleus are happening, which is in the 3N. 2N is there. Another N is fertilized. So 3N are formation, and this egg nucleus, these are ultimately fertilized by another generative nucleus, which one is called the fertilization. But you know, in the embryo sac, how many times the fertilization are happening? This one and this one. The 2 times of fertilization are happening. So it is called the double fertilization, and it is called the triple fusion. After the fertilization of the egg cell, the zygote are formed. After the fertilization of the polar nucleus, primary endosperm nucleus are formed. So after the fertilization, all the petals, stamens, style, stigma, all the fall up. And the primary endosperm nucleus divided from the endosperm is formed there. This is called the nuclear endosperm. And this one is the zygote now after the fertilization. And in here also, the fertilization are happening, or cell division are happening. Then the embryo are formed. This is the integuments is there. So all the different parts are changed into the different parts after the fertilization. Like the ovule are ultimately become the seed, and ovary are become into the fruits. After fertilization, it is happening. Primary endosperm nucleus, like the zygote are formed. After the zygote cell division, the embryo or formation are happening. This is a dicot embryo because the 2 cotyledons is there. Now the seeds are formed. Seeds are formed from the ovule. And the fruits are formation are happening, and integuments, that is ultimately convert to the seed coat, that is the testa. This is formation are happening after the fertilization process. So from that flower we are get one fruits, and inside that the seed are present. So ovary develop into the fruits. So this is the most important chapter of the pollination and fertilization. So we have discussed today class and the double fertilization process and what is happened after the fertilization, that is we discussed in our today class. And in every chapter of the class 9 I give you a notes and some question answer and some exercise question in my WhatsApp number. Please you contact with me to get these notes with exercise and also some question answer in every chapter in class 8, class 9, class 10, CBSE or ICSE board. I give you all the chapter notes and their questions and exercise. Please you contact it, but all of the students must be complete the all homework. That is mandatory to all of you students. So thank you very much all of the students. So for carefully learn from this session. So thank you very much, and wish you the best of luck.